This is one of the most successful fighter jets ever built. Over 4,000 of them have been made. It has flown in the air forces of more than 25 countries. It has fought in wars across for decades, and it started out as a cheap side project that almost nobody believed in. In the early 1970s, the US Air Force had just bought a brand new fighter, the F-15 Eagle. The F-15 was big, powerful, and expensive. It was built to win any air battle against the Soviet Union. But there was a problem. The Air Force could not afford a whole fleet made only of expensive jets like this. So the Air Force started a new program. It was called the Lightweight Fighter Program. The goal was simple: build a small, cheap, and extremely agile jet that could work alongside the F-15. Two companies stepped up with designs. General Dynamics built the F-16. Northrop built the F-17. Here is the twist: the F-16 had one engine, the F-17 had two. Many of America's allies were nervous about a single-engine fighter. They remembered painful experiences with an older single-engine jet, the F-104, which had a rough safety record. So even before the competition was decided, other countries were already hoping for the twin-engine option. But when the two jets went head-to-head, the F-16 won. It was faster to turn, lighter, and cheaper to build. The Navy, however, still wanted two engines for safety over open water. So they took Northrop as losing design and had another company, McDonnell Douglas, build it instead. That jet became the F-18 Hornet, two very different careers from the same competition. The winning F-16 was built around a powerful new engine, the Pratt Whitney F-100. It was the same engine used in the big F-15. This engine was actually so advanced that American officials worried about selling it to other countries. For a while, General Dynamics even built a special export version of the F-16 with an older, less powerful engine just to avoid the problem. Now here is where the F-16 became truly revolutionary. It was one of the first fighter jets in history with no direct mechanical link between the pilot and the flight controls. Everything, the pitch, the roll, the speed brakes, all of it ran through computers. This is called fly-by-wire. To make the jet incredibly maneuverable, engineers pushed its balance point past the edge of natural stability. In simple words, the jet was designed to be almost impossible to fly by hand. Only the onboard computers, making tiny corrections many times per second, kept it under control. The reward for this risky design was a jet that could pull 9 times the force of gravity and keep flying like it was nothing. To help pilots survive those crushing G-forces, engineers tilted the ejection seat back 30 degrees. It was one more small idea aimed at pushing the human body a little further. The engine had its own growing pains. Early F-100 engines sometimes suffered something called a stagnation stall, where the engine would suddenly quit and refuse to restart in the air. In a twin-engine jet like the F-15, that was scary but survivable. In a single-engine F-16, it could mean total silence at altitude. Several early aircraft were lost this way before Pratt Whitney redesigned the engine to fix the problem. Before any new jet reaches real pilots, it goes through brutal testing. For the F-16, this happened at Edwards Air Force Base in California. Because the F-16 was the first true fly-by-wire fighter, this was uncharted territory. Test pilots were flying a jet that literally could not fly itself without its computers working correctly. One story from this period says a lot about how strange early testing could get. During a gunnery test, a pilot fired the F-16's cannon and suddenly the jet rolled hard to the left, completely on its own. The pilot regained control, checked everything, and tried again. On the very next pass, the same thing happened again, back to base. Engineers found the cause. Electrical noise from the gun motor was leaking into a control wire. The flight computers picked up that noise and mistook it for a roll command from the pilot's stick. The fix was simple: better shielding on the wiring, but it is a perfect example of just how new and untested this fly-by-wire idea really was. The first F-16 has reached an active duty squadron in 1979 at Hill Air Force Base. Around this same time, the Air Force ran a contest to give the jet a nickname. Most pilots wanted to call it Viper, inspired by the fighters in the show Battlestar Galactica. Officials picked something else instead, Fighting Falcon. The name Viper never really went away, though. Pilots still use it today. Unfortunately, some of the problems found in testing followed the jet into real squadrons. Aircraft were being lost, and the F-16 picked up a grim nickname of its own, the Lawn Dart. Engineers did not give up. They went back through every issue identified in testing and began fixing them one by one. Bigger tail surfaces improved control. The rigid control stick was replaced with one that gave pilots a bit of physical feedback. The upgraded engine version reduced stall problems. Piece by piece, the F-16 grew into the aircraft it was always meant to be. Some of the most important lessons about the F-16 did not come from a test range at all. They came from real combat, flown by the Israeli Air Force. Israeli pilots and engineers found ways to carry heavier weapons loads and modified the landing gear to handle the extra weight. American engineers later built these same improvements directly into new production F-16s. As the years passed, the F-16 kept evolving. New versions added better radar, modern cockpits, and a system called Lantern that let pilots find and strike targets at night using laser-guided weapons. This turned the F-16 from a daytime dogfighter into a jet that could fight around the clock in any weather. There was even a choice of engines. Some F-16s used an improved Pratt Whitney engine. Others used a new engine from General Electric, which needed a wider air intake, giving those jets a slightly different look. If one engine type ever had a fleet-wide problem, squadrons could simply swap engines instead of grounding every single aircraft. It was a clever solution to a problem that had haunted the program from the very beginning. Later versions took on an entirely new mission, hunting enemy air defense radars, a dangerous job nicknamed Wild Weasel. These specially equipped F-16s carried a targeting pod and HARM missiles, letting a single pilot do a job that used to require a whole crew in an older, larger aircraft. Today, F-16s fly for air forces on almost every continent. Some of the earliest versions have already been retired. Newer versions continue flying frontline missions around the world, even as newer stealth jets slowly take over some of their roles. What began as the cheaper, simpler option in a fighter competition became one of the most produced, most exported, and most combat-tested jets in aviation history. Not bad for a jet that almost failed its own final exam.